First, a host of Get Your News On with Ron. Ron Placone is here. Hi, Ron. How are you, buddy?
What's up, Jimmy? Good to see you, man. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. So there's been a lot of hoopla happening about the hashtag Force the Vote. So there's been articles written. There's this guy, Yasha Levine. You know who he is?
No, that's not ringing a bell.
Me neither. I didn't know. He's apparently he's an influencer. I looked him up. And so Krystal Ball read, we've been showing you how people have been reacting to this. She compiled a couple of things, and instead of me going back and doing it myself, I'll just piggyback off her great video. So I'm just going to play it in its entirety. We'll stop and start it. Ron and I will comment because she makes some great observations about what this moment is revealing about the left. Hashtag Force the Vote moment. It's revealing a lot, that a lot of people who you thought were going to fight for Medicare for all actually are never going to fight for Medicare for all. It's revealing that. It's revealing a lot of people whose whole life have been saying, I'm for Medicare for all, and when the time came to fight for it, they're not doing that. That's very revealing right now. People bending themselves, who claim to be on the left and claim to be for Medicare for all, bending themselves in pretzels to not do it. But she's also talking about there's been a lot of heat, or there's always, whenever they talk about the left-wing media sphere, it's always done with derision, even from the liberal. I'm talking about not from the right way. I'm talking about from the liberal class. And she nails that here. Watch this.
The Force the Vote debate over whether or not progressives in Congress should demand anything at all in exchange for supporting Nancy Pelosi for Speaker continues to rage on. One of the latest entrants into the debate was a kind of a strange piece from Yasha Levine over on Substack. Now, Yasha actually admits that he agrees with the idea of forcing the squad to do something, as he writes. What's the point of seeking congressional power if you're not going to use it to make a scene, gum up the works, and show up your enemies? Pretty well said. Now, his problem isn't with the idea itself, but rather with the left media ecosystem that supports this idea. He writes, quote, "The Bernie revolution was a dud and disappeared right in front of our very eyes, while spawning a new prog-left media ecosystem that is very profitable for a few key influencers, listening to their streams and podcasts with their entrepreneurial hosts and pundits and panels filled with the same left celebs and climbers and
So I'm just going to jump in real quick. It seems like this is happening a lot, that there's a jealousy in the media that, oh my God, other people other than me to my left have influence. That's got to be somehow shitty. That's got to be somehow not good. That's got to be, I don't know, let me just try to frame it in the most unflattering way possible, that there's some independent voices breaking through in the media right now that are progressive because all we've had is corporate claptrap for 40 straight years, my entire life. We've got nothing. I don't know if you've read Manufacturing Consent. So this, you would think they would be applauding this, but he's, again, bending themselves into pretzels to try to find a way to make this a negative, which is just hilarious to me. Anything, Ron?
It's really bad that there's people promoting left-wing ideas and other people want to hear about it. How are we going to win that way?
Here we go.
funded left liberal experts, it's like they've recreated their own national level media bubble, a low rent MSNBC with the same sort of imperatives driving their output, revenue, celebrity marketing, and the constant need for fear and conflict and hero and evildoer narratives to drive eyeballs and subs.
So they have the same sort of imperatives that we have the same imperatives of MSNBC. I don't know if Yasha has ever read Manufacturing Consent, but we don't have the same imperatives. If you've read Manufacturing Consent, you know what the imperative of MSNBC is, and that's to manufacture consent. What we're here to do, our imperative, our first order of business, is to push it back against the manufactured consent and to expose where those people, under the guise of giving you the news, are actually manufacturing consent. So it would be totally different. So that same sort of imperatives, we have completely different imperatives. So again, I'll take the heat for not knowing who this Yasha Levine guy was, but him doing that, this is on him. That's complete bullshit. That's fucking garbage. No, our imperatives are 100% fucking different. 100%. Would you agree with that, Ron?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, of course, there are some similarities. Both entities use cameras and technology to get messages to people, and both talk about stuff that is happening in the world. But I think that's where the similarities end.
Okay. So again, this is just revenue, celebrity, marketing, and the constant need for fear and conflict and hero and evildoer narratives to drive eyeballs and subs. So basically he's saying, there's other people covering the news now. That's what he's saying. There's other people besides the approved pieces of it in the mainstream at MSNBC, and there's also people covering it, and somehow it's negative. Somehow
people like those other people.
What's that?
People like those other people.
Yeah. Somehow this is a bad idea that we're allowed to do. This is all just claptrap, horrible garbage. I don't understand. Anyway, here's back to Krystal.
So the problem, again, isn't actually the idea of forcing the vote itself, but that anyone from the Bernie left has gone on to garner a following and find success in the new media arena.
She sums it up perfectly. He doesn't have a problem with hashtag force the vote at all. Great idea. You know what the problem is? These people who came up with the idea, they're, becoming popular. Why is that a good thing? People who have a populist message and they expose the manufacturing of consent in the establishment media, I don't like it. There's got to be something wrong with it. Okay, here we go.
Levine also made the mistake of singling out friend of the show David Sirota, in particular, painting him as a grifter with no real impact. Incredibly foolish choice, given that David's original reporting has already forced congressional action and actual political change. But Yasha's not the only one who's making this argument. One of the proxy fights.
Did he really call David Sirota a grifter? I mean, I don't.
Apparently he did.
Jeez. What? Because he writes article? I don't understand. How is David Sirota a grifter? I don't know. I guess anyway.
Well, I'll never forget my first day of college orientation where like the leader was like, look, if you really want to get the big money, you got to get into writing. That's where the dollars are. Writing, that's just huge bucks.
You should be a muckraker against the establishment in corporate America. That's where the real money is.
Oh, man. Start your own blog. Cha-ching, baby.
I mean,
that's where it's at.
You can have disagreements with David Sirota. We've had them here, but I don't think those are the disagreements you can have.
It's unfolding through the debate over force the vote is about whether the online left and left media is something to be celebrated or to be scorned completely. Now, this feeds directly into the debate over whether left energy is best spent and how it's most effectively wielded. A debate, of course, has been playing out ever since the collapse of the Sanders campaign. In fact, one of the persistent critiques of the force the vote concept at all is that it came from YouTube host and comedian Jimmy Dore. Plenty of people let their personal feelings about Jimmy get in the way of their analysis of his idea. But plenty also used the debate to trash the very idea that leveraging new media for political action was a worthwhile course at all. Now, personally, I find this view absurd, defeatist, and oddly detached from reality, given that online strength is essentially all that the left really has today. Today, the left does not have institutional power, so when AOC, for example, proposes that instead of online demands and floor votes, we should trust her and others to maneuver behind the scenes, it's frankly a ridiculous suggestion. Progressives have pursued this path to power and influence doggedly with little to show for it. After all, how much influence were progressives working through these institutional channels able to wield in shaping the stimulus response?
Zero.
How did it ultimately work out for AOC herself in trying to get on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce? Or you could ask Elizabeth Warren how playing the game has been for her vice presidential or Treasury Secretary ambitions. Playing the game as it's played here in Washington is off the table as an effective strategy. Now, Yasha argues in his piece, and others have argued this as well, that national debates in politics should be ignored completely in favor of local organizing. Now, this sounds really nice, and it's kind of a romantic concept. But of course, the truth is, today the left does not have a foothold in most local communities across the country to shape the culture and the political pipeline from the ground up. Organizations like DSA are working to change that, and their efforts backing local candidates have truly been impressive. But there's still a long way to go and many years to go on that front. It's vital work that deserves support and attention, but it's also off the table in terms of achieving any kind of result today. Also, the ugly reality is that much of politics has been subsumed into the national political debate. There's been a lot of post-2020 debate about whether progressive candidates or blue dogs did better. I admit I've engaged in that debate myself. But really, the truth is, their policy differences matter little, if at all, at this point. Thanks to partisan tribalism, general elections have become nothing more than a temperature reading on the partisan divide within that particular region, rather than an actual contest of ideas or candidate quality. This election saw less ticket splitting than ever before, with the fewest number of districts in history splitting their vote between president and House candidates. So, for example, if you were a Democrat in a blue trending Whole Foods district, you probably did well. If you were trying to hang on as a Democrat in Cracker Barrel country, you were probably host. What's more, the problems facing the country are in fact increasingly national in scope. The pandemic is a perfect example here. Local officials have had their hands tied and their capability to respond gutted by a failed federal response. But mass structural inequality, addiction, an ever-expanding police state, and so much more are all issues that have their roots in federal government. Now, there are only two advantages that the left actually has today. One is that the left's economic positions on everything from healthcare, stimulus, wages, and unions are extremely popular. And two, the left has a loud base online and a growing new media ecosystem. So ideas like Force the Vote that combine online pressure with exposing that yawning gap between every establishment figure in Washington and what people actually want, those are exactly the sorts of opportunities that we should be pushing for and should be exploiting. But even beyond this specific idea, the one area where the left is actually in decent shape is online. So why in the world would you unilaterally disarm in that area? Think about it. The bedrock of Sanders' campaign was online, which is exactly the reason that the establishment and their media allies went to such great lengths to turn this strength into a weakness with their whole concocted narrative about toxic Bernie bros. Similarly, AOC and the squad's power doesn't come from the offices that they hold or the committees that they sit on. It comes from the social media armies that they direct. If they aren't interested in leveraging those tools, then they're just ordinary members of Congress who don't actually deserve any more attention than anyone else. The outright dismissal, too, of media as a political force is really weird. Fox News was explicitly started as a tool for supporting right-wing politics, and by the way, it's been extraordinarily effective. MSNBC basically determined the Democratic nominee this cycle and sets the agenda for the entire Democratic Party. I think it rather overstates things to imagine that the left has recreated anything like these media powerhouses, but to dismiss the entire project of building a left media ecosystem is incredibly counterproductive. Sure, some actors in the space are better than others, but I'm old enough to remember when there was a lot of panic and hand-wringing about how the right was too dominant online and the kids were doomed to be reactionaries as a result. But the instinct to dismiss the few areas where there are some positive indications from the squad seats that have been won, the online grassroots base, the growth of left media, all of that does have one advantage. It allows some to continue to engage in a comfortable nihilism, the domain of the left for years, where nothing matters and nothing is ever possible. Irrelevance and impotence are actually easy and safe. And as this debate is exposed, many are happy to live in this neverland indefinitely. And we'll have more rising for you.
So she said a whole lot there. She's great at identifying this. She's great at breaking this down. She did a great job there. And yeah, it's this weird, as the kids today say, Ron, when the populist left rises up and takes advantage of social media or YouTube or the new media and actually forces can forward lefty ideas to where the mainstream gets behind them. Somehow that seems as somehow a negative thing to the people who are not part of it. They kind of break their backs trying to figure out why there's something wrong with it. Now my own haters try to make it look that I'm some kind of they say that I'm doing this for some kind of personal grift because, and I like to tell them, I'm anti-war and for Medicare for all. I'm in the pocket of big peace and socialized medicine. Mm-hmm. That's where all the money is, Ron. You know that. That's
that and writing.
That and writing. So she really, and so there's this part of the left that likes being impotent. Mm. There's this part of the left that is as soon as you come up with a plan to fight, they're like, we can't do that. Let's just say, like, look at all the Medicare for all organizations that aren't jumping on this moment because Well, there's a lot more money in treating diabetes than there is in curing it. And some people get comfortable pushing for Medicare for all instead of actually making it happen. And we're seeing a lot of that right now. Right now, people who, again, AOC, who ran on, we've got to have a Medicare. Nancy Pelosi, there's a video that Lee Fong over at Intercept found of her in 1994 demanding a vote on single payer. So what's your reaction to this?
Yeah, I mean, she covered a lot of ground, and the one thing she said early on that I kept coming back to throughout it and feel regularly whenever I'm on Twitter is self-defeatist. Because it's just an incredibly self-defeatist attitude. I mean, first of all, who on the left thinks mobilizing online is a bad thing? And I'm very curious to hear their alternative. Be like, look, you people online, you got to get back to the roots. Let's start advertising on AM radio. Gonna jump into some print media. Like, what is your alternative idea? Like I posted a flyer down at the grocery store, and revolution is afoot.
That is it's exactly right. And people keep saying, well, you can't do hashtag force the vote. You got to do organizing and get people on board. 90% of the Democratic Party is already on board. How much more goddamn organizing do you need to do? The organizing we need to do is to get you to stop saying we need organizing and start pressuring your elected representatives who actually can make this happen right now. That is such a bullshit idea that we have to do more organizing. We have been organizing my entire life for Medicare for All. 30 years ago, Nancy Pelosi was screaming for a single-payer vote, and 30 years later, AOC is here screaming for it right now, and now we're screaming for it. The time is now. The time for it is You know, they got the National Health Service in London and during World War II, after World War II, that's when you need it. So when a crisis comes, that's when the government is supposed to react. That's when we're supposed to do this. The crisis is here. This is the biggest economic crisis of anybody's lifetime, and this is the biggest health crisis of anybody's lifetime. The time is now, not wait, not go organize more for a time in the future that will be more receptive to a single-payer vote. What are you, nuts? Yes. Yes, those people have health care and are nuts. Everybody who is against this right now, I challenge you to give up your health care and then come back to me. Write an article after that. Give up your health care. Anything else, Ron?
Well, I going on that, one of the other things she brought up was local organizing and local action, which, by the way, I'm all about. I'm all about local action. I'm all about those things. I think those are great things. But to then use that as a reason to say we shouldn't pressure Congress to do anything, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Like I don't even see the connection. Hey, I'm fighting for municipal broadband in my neighborhood. That's a local action. I also support force the vote. I don't need to choose between those two things.
That's the classic liberal move, Ron. They make progressives choose between the stuff they think they need. And that's garbage. Again, right now, the bare minimum is a vote on hashtag force the vote. If the squad wanted to get more things, they could get whatever they want right now. They could get whatever it is. They want to get a chairmanship. They want to get a committee assignment. They want to get another vote on something else. They can do whatever they want, and they have all the power. Nancy Pelosi has to come and negotiate with them, or she's not speaker. So if they don't do this, they're telling you no matter how many people support us, no matter 90% of the Democratic Party's behind us and has our back, we will never fight for you. That's what they're saying. Okay, anything else you want to cap this off with?
Hashtag force the vote and hashtag general strike.
All right, fantastic. Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.